In the year 1785, the Mekong Delta became the stage for one of Asia's most spectacular river battles. A fleet of more than 300 warships from Siam advanced with confidence, carrying over 20,000 men. But waiting in silence was Nguyen Hue, a commander only 23 years old, who would use the river, the tides, and fire itself as weapons. What followed was not just a victory, but the complete destruction of an invading army in a single night. In the late 18th century, Vietnam was divided. In the north, the Tay Son movement, a major Vietnamese rebellion led by three brothers, had risen against both the Trinh lords in the north and the Nguyen lords in the south. By 1785, the Tay Son armies under the leadership of Nguyen Nach, Nguyen Hue, and Nguyen Hue had become a dominant force. Their reputation for rapid campaigns and decisive victories spread across the region. But in the south, not all was secure. Nguyen An, a surviving member of the Nguyen royal line, later known as Emperor Gia Long, refused to surrender his claim. Driven from Gia Dinh, today's Ho Chi Minh City, he sought allies beyond Vietnam's borders. To reclaim power, he turned to Siam, the old kingdom of Thailand. The Siamese court saw an opportunity. Supporting Nguyen An would give Siam influence in Cochinchina, the southern part of Vietnam, and possibly secure tributary status from the region. In late 1784, King Rama I dispatched a major expedition. It was commanded by Prince Thapharirac, known in Vietnamese sources as Chio Tang, accompanied by senior generals and reinforced by Cambodian auxiliaries. The force was immense. More than 20,000 troops, hundreds of war galleys, and a confident belief that victory was assured. Their target was clear. By seizing control of the Mekong Delta, they would restore Nguyen An, crush the Tay Son, and extend Siamese power deep into the region. News of this invasion soon reached Nguyen Hue, the second of the Tay Son brothers. Only in his early 20s, he was already recognized as one of the most skilled commanders in Vietnamese history. Rather than meeting the enemy in open battle, he chose to fight on terms that the river itself would dictate. He moved to My Tho, a key river town in the Mekong Delta, and carefully examined the terrain. The tributaries of Rach Gam and Xoai Mut, two small branches of the Tien River, together with the large Tay Son Island in midstream, provided a natural trap. Here he would confront the Siamese fleet. At My Tho, a key river town in the Mekong Delta, Nguyen Hue began a systematic preparation. He understood that the Siamese fleet outnumbered his forces by a wide margin. Direct confrontation on open water would be too costly. Instead, he decided to use the river's geography, combined with deception, to create conditions where the larger enemy force would be trapped and destroyed. The chosen battlefield was a section of the Tien River, the main branch of the Mekong in southern Vietnam, where the tributaries of Rach Gam and Xoai Mut entered. In the middle lay Tay Son Island, a long strip of land covered with orchards and dense vegetation. The river here narrowed into a natural corridor. For Hue, it was the perfect place to stage an ambush. Artillery was concealed along both banks and on Tay Son Island itself. Heavy cannons obtained from earlier victories were dug in behind bamboo screens and camouflaged with palm leaves. Smaller pieces were hidden inside houses and gardens, their muzzles pointing toward the river. Troops were stationed in silence, ready to strike when the order was given. Fire rafts, boats loaded with straw, resin, and flammable oil, were prepared in secret. They would be released at the right moment, drifting with the current to set Siamese ships ablaze and block their retreat. Infantry waited along the riverbanks to deal with survivors who might attempt to swim ashore. Nguyen Hue also used deception. Small Tay Son detachments approached the Siamese camp under flags of truce, delivering gifts and polite words. They pretended weakness, allowing minor skirmishes and then retreating. This created the impression that the Tay Son were disorganized and hesitant to fight. It encouraged the Siamese commanders to push forward deeper into the ambush zone. Through careful observation, Hue timed his plan with the tides. He knew the Siamese would advance with the flood tide, which carried them quickly downstream. But once inside the chosen stretch of river, the falling tide would make maneuver difficult, pressing their crowded ships into narrow waters. At that moment, the trap would close. In January 1785, the Siamese expedition began its decisive movement. From their base at Tra Tan, a forward Siamese camp near the Mekong, the commanders gathered their fleet. Contemporary accounts speak of more than 300 warships, supported by transports and supply vessels. On board were not only Siamese soldiers, but also Cambodian auxiliaries and Vietnamese loyal to Nguyen Hue. Their total strength exceeded 20,000 men. The fleet moved in columns along the Tien River. The sight was imposing, rows of galleys powered by hundreds of oars, drums beating time, banners rising above the decks. Torches lit the night sky as the ships pressed forward. To the Siamese commanders, victory seemed certain. Their numbers were overwhelming, and their enemy appeared hesitant. Nguyen Hue accompanied the fleet. For him, this was more than a campaign. It was the chance to reclaim his ancestral power in Cochinchina, southern Vietnam in the 18th century. He placed his trust in Siamese strength, convinced that the Tay Son resistance could not withstand such force. As the fleet advanced, its length stretched for kilometers. The vanguard reached the tributary of Rach Gam. The rear still extended back toward Xoai Mut. In between lay Tay Son Island in the ambush zone, carefully prepared by Nguyen Hue. From the banks, hidden Tay Son observers marked the progress of the fleet and relayed signals back to their commander. By the time the Siamese crossed into this corridor, the trap was ready. Artillery crews waited behind camouflage. Fire rafts lay moored in small creeks, concealed from view. Infantry remained silent among orchards and riverbank huts. The river seemed calm. To the Siamese, it was simply another stretch of water. To Nguyen Hue, it was the decisive battlefield. On the night of January 19, 1785, the Siamese fleet entered the corridor between Rach Gam and Xoai Mut. The moonlight revealed hundreds of ships pressing downstream. The river seemed quiet, the banks calm. Yet every palm tree, every orchard, and every bend of the water concealed men and weapons waiting for the signal. Nguyen Hue had arranged his forces with precision. On Tay Son Island, the central artillery batteries were hidden behind bamboo screens and layers of foliage. Their fields of fire covered the main channel. On both northern and southern banks, lighter cannons were placed in staggered positions, creating overlapping lines of fire. Infantry units, armed with spears and bows, crouched silently in the undergrowth. Fire rafts loaded with straw and resin were anchored inside narrow creeks, tied with ropes that could be cut in an instant. At the center of the plan was timing. Hue waited until the Siamese fleet had fully entered the trap. The vanguard was near Rach Gam, the rear guard still at Xoai Mut, with a long line of ships trapped between. The tide had begun to change, slowing the fleet's movement. Oarsmen struggled against the current, their rhythm breaking as confusion spread. It was the moment Nguyen Hue had calculated. The signal came suddenly, a horn blast, deep and long, echoing across the river. Immediately, artillery on Tay Son opened fire. Explosions tore through the leading Siamese ships. Grape shot, clusters of small iron balls, ripped across crowded decks, cutting down rowers and soldiers alike. On the banks, cannons joined in, striking the center of the fleet. In an instant, order collapsed into chaos. Then came the fire rafts. Tay Son soldiers cut the ropes, releasing boats packed with flammable material. With the current behind them, the rafts drifted swiftly toward the Siamese formation. Flames leapt high as oil and resin ignited. The burning rafts crashed into enemy vessels, setting sails and decks ablaze. The fire spread from ship to ship, creating a wall of smoke and flame. At the same time, Tay Son warboats emerged from hidden channels. Smaller and more agile than the heavy Siamese galleys, they rowed quickly across the river, throwing grappling hooks and boarding enemy ships already weakened by fire and cannon shot. Fighting broke out at close quarters, with Tay Son infantry clashing against disorganized Siamese soldiers. Nguyen Hue's strategy was clear: to attack on every front at once, leaving no space for the enemy to regroup. Artillery pounded from the island and both banks. Fire rafts disrupted the fleet's formation. Small boats harassed the flanks. Infantry on shore cut down those who tried to swim to safety. The Siamese fleet, vast in number, had no room to maneuver in the narrow waters. Their strength turned into weakness. As dawn approached, the devastation was clear. Dozens of Siamese ships were burning. Others had sunk, their masts sticking out of the water like broken spears. Soldiers leapt into the river to escape the flames, only to be struck down by Tay Son forces waiting on the banks. Panic spread quickly. Commands were drowned out by the noise of cannon, fire, and collapsing ships. By mid-morning, the battle was decided. The Siamese vanguard had been destroyed. The center was broken apart. The rearguard, unable to advance or retreat, was trapped and scattered. Nguyen Hue had achieved complete surprise and complete victory. By dawn, the scale of the disaster for the Siamese became unmistakable. The Tien River was covered with wreckage. Burned hulls drifted downstream, masts protruded like broken spears, and bodies floated among the debris. Entire squadrons had been destroyed within hours. The Siamese vanguard had been shattered at the first artillery barrage. The center, caught between fire rafts and cannon fire, had collapsed into confusion. The rearguard, still outside the ambush zone, found itself unable to advance into flames or retreat against the current. Packed tightly in narrow waters, the great fleet became its own prison. Nguyen Hue's forces continued to strike in coordinated waves. Cannon fire from the banks maintained pressure on the surviving ships. Small Tay Son warboats harassed the flanks, cutting down officers and boarding weakened vessels. Infantry along the shores prevented escape. For the Siamese, there was no safe direction. Prince Theferirak, realizing the scale of the defeat, abandoned the river. Along with a contingent of survivors, he retreated westward by land, moving through Cambodian territory in an attempt to return to Siam. Nguyen An, shielded by a small loyal guard, managed to escape as well, fleeing once more into exile under Siamese protection. His hopes of immediate restoration were shattered. The losses were catastrophic. Vietnamese sources speak of nearly the entire Siamese fleet destroyed, with only a fraction of troops managing to survive. Contemporary accounts suggest that as many as 20,000 men were lost in the battle and retreat. For Siam, it was one of the greatest military disasters of the era. In My Tho and across the Mekong Delta, news of the victory spread quickly. Markets reopened, villages celebrated, and the Tay Son reputation rose to new heights. The river, which had seemed to carry invasion, now carried the remains of a broken army. For Nguyen Hue, the success at Rach Gam, Xoai Mut confirmed his mastery of strategy and riverine warfare. He had turned geography into a weapon and transformed a smaller force into the victor over a larger, better supplied invader. The Battle of Rach Gam, Xoai Mut marked a turning point in regional history. For Siam, the defeat was devastating. An entire expeditionary force, carefully assembled and heavily equipped, had been destroyed within a single night. The losses in manpower and ships shocked the Siamese court. King Rama I was forced to reconsider future interventions in Vietnam. The ambition to extend Siamese influence deep into the Mekong Delta was halted. For Nguyen An, the battle was another setback in a long struggle. Though he escaped with his life, his plans for immediate restoration collapsed. Once again, he became a ruler without a throne, dependent on foreign support and forced into exile. Yet he would not give up. Over the next decades, he would continue his attempts, eventually establishing the Nguyen dynasty. But in 1785, his fortunes lay in ruins. For Nguyen Hue and the Tay Son, the victory was total. It demonstrated their ability to defend Vietnamese territory against a far larger invading force. It showcased the tactical brilliance of Nguyen Hue, who had combined artillery, fire ships, and terrain into a coordinated plan of destruction. The battle became a model of riverine warfare, often compared to the great naval engagements of world history. The local population of the Mekong Delta also felt the impact. Villages that had lived under fear of invasion could now breathe again. Markets reopened. Farmers returned to their fields. The memory of the battle entered folk songs and oral tradition, reinforcing the image of Nguyen Hue as a protector of the land. In the broader context, the victory enhanced Tay Son legitimacy. At a time when the movement faced enemies both north and south, the destruction of the Siamese expedition strengthened their position dramatically. Neighboring states took notice. Vietnam could not be easily invaded, and the Tay Son were not to be underestimated. Yet history did not stop at the Mekong. Within a few years, Nguyen Hue would march north, facing the armies of the Qing dynasty of China at the Battle of Ngoc Hoi, Dong Da near Hanoi in 1789. His career was far from finished, and his reputation continued to grow. The river at Rach Gam and Xoai Mut still flows today. To travelers, it appears calm, lined with orchards and villages. But beneath the surface lies a memory of fire rafts drifting in the night, of cannon echoing across the water, and of a commander who turned geography into victory. The battle remains one of the most decisive river engagements in Asian history,